when she was married to him, I really loved.
Legend.
Yeah, and she was always nice to me.
Jermaine Jackson has revealed the one family member he hates most. The feud started with a 17-year-old woman who would become the weapon in the most vicious Jackson family war ever exposed.
Jermaine told me that Michael had called him at that time and told him, "Are you in love with her?" And he said, "Yes, I'm really in love with her."
$600,000 in unpaid child support. 2 children watching their uncle become their stepfather. And a brother marrying his sibling's ex while she still lived with their kids.
Living in the compound.
What now?
What's the latest with her living in the compound? Is she getting evicted?
21 years for free. Cost the compound $60,000 a month. You tell me what she owes. 21 years for free?
The brother Jermaine destroyed was Randy Jackson. But Randy wasn't just any victim. He fought back in ways that would tear the entire Jackson family apart. Let's get into it. To understand the hatred, you have to understand what was lost. Jermaine and Randy Jackson weren't just brothers. They were 2 pillars of the most successful black family in entertainment history. But their paths to fame couldn't have been more different. Jermaine Jackson was born December 11th, 1954, into a family that would soon become music royalty. As one of the original Jackson 5, he possessed a smooth tenor voice that complemented Michael's soprano perfectly. More than just a singer, Jermaine was a multi-instrumentalist who anchored the group's sound on bass guitar, often replicating the complex bass lines of Motown legend James Jamerson. But Jermaine's position in the family hierarchy was complicated from the start. While Michael emerged as the breakout star, Jermaine held his ground as the group's musical foundation. He wasn't just another Jackson brother. He was the one who understood music theory, who could arrange harmonies, who bridged the gap between childhood talent and professional artistry.
I was the lead singer first. When he started singing and he started watching James Brown and Joe Tex and all these people and Sammy Davis and Jackie Wilson, it was over.
Randy Jackson, born October 29, 1961, entered the story differently. As the youngest Jackson brother, he missed the original Jackson 5's meteoric rise to fame. While his older siblings were conquering Ed Sullivan and breaking racial barriers on television, Randy was still learning to walk. This age gap would define their relationship, Jermaine as the established veteran, Randy as the talented newcomer fighting for recognition. When the Jackson 5 left Motown for Epic Records in 1975, everything changed. Jermaine made the controversial decision to stay with Motown, officially ending his time with the group. Some attributed this to loyalty. Motown had discovered and nurtured the Jackson 5. Others whispered about more personal motivations. Jermaine had married Hazel Gordy, daughter of Motown founder Berry Gordy Jr., in 1973.
I love music, so to see Jermaine is exciting. You know, we'll have it on, and when he comes on, the kids and myself, we run to the television, and there's Daddy.
Randy stepped into the void left by Jermaine's departure, joining his brothers as they rebranded as the Jacksons. Despite being only 14 years old, Randy proved he belonged. He was a natural musician with an intuitive understanding of rhythm and arrangement. Where Jermaine brought technical precision, Randy brought raw energy and innovation. For years, this arrangement worked. Jermaine built a successful solo career at Motown, while Randy helped the Jacksons achieve new creative heights on Epic Records. They were brothers pursuing parallel paths, each carving their own space in the Jackson legacy. But beneath the surface, competition was brewing. In the Jackson family, talent was abundant, but spotlight was limited. Success was measured not just in chart positions and album sales, but in who commanded respect, who controlled narrative, who held power within the family structure. Neither brother could have predicted that their rivalry would ultimately center not on music, but on a 17-year-old woman who would tear their family apart from the inside.
Jermaine told me that Michael had called him at that time and told him, "Are you in love with her?"
Her name was Alejandra Oaziaza, and in 1986, she became the catalyst for the most destructive feud in Jackson family history. At 17, she was young, beautiful, and completely unprepared for the psychological warfare that would consume the next 2 decades of her life. Randy Jackson was 24 when he began dating Alejandra. The 7-year age gap raised eyebrows, but Randy was smitten. This wasn't just teenage infatuation. Randy saw in Alejandra something he'd been searching for his entire life. Someone who chose him first, not as Michael Jackson's brother or another member of the Jackson 5, but as Randy. Their relationship produced 2 children who would become pawns in a family power struggle. Genevieve was born in 1989, followed by Stephen in 1992.
Hi, I'm Genevieve. I'm 24 and I have 4 brothers.
And we have 1 mother, but 2 fathers who happen to be brothers.
And we're all members of the Jackson family.
But Randy's commitment to fatherhood proved as complicated as everything else in his life. While he loved his children, those close to the couple observed his struggles with consistency and responsibility. The first major betrayal came from Randy himself. In 1989, while still in a relationship with Alejandra and raising their daughter Genevieve, Randy married another woman, Eliza Shaffey. This wasn't a secret affair or momentary lapse in judgment. Randy maintained simultaneous relationships with both women, even having a daughter, Stevana, with Eliza. Alejandra found herself in an impossible position, the mother of Randy's children, but not his wife. She was part of the Jackson family, but had no legal protection, no guaranteed support, no clear status. Randy's dual relationships left her vulnerable, dependent on his goodwill and the Jackson family's acceptance. What happened next reveals the calculating nature of Jackson family dynamics. Jermaine Jackson, Randy's older brother, began to see opportunity in his brother's dysfunction. While Randy juggled 2 relationships and struggled with fatherly responsibilities, Jermaine positioned himself as Alejandra's protector and confidant. The seduction was methodical. Jermaine understood that Alejandra felt abandoned and disrespected by Randy's marriage to Eliza. He offered emotional support, financial stability, and, most importantly, legitimacy. Where Randy had kept her in the shadows, Jermaine promised to make her an official Jackson wife. In 1995, Jermaine and Alejandra shocked the family by announcing their secret marriage. This wasn't just romantic betrayal, it was strategic warfare. By marrying Alejandra, Jermaine gained control over Randy's children, Randy's former partner, and the narrative around Randy's failures as a father and partner. Randy's response was immediate and devastating. In interviews, he called Alejandra disrespectful and Jermaine a fool. But his anger went deeper than wounded pride. Randy understood that Jermaine had orchestrated the ultimate power play, transforming Randy's family into Jermaine's family with a single marriage certificate. The psychological impact on the children was immense. Genevieve and Stephen Jackson suddenly found themselves living with their uncle's stepfather, watching their biological father become an outsider in what had once been his own family.
My brother says he forgives my father, and that's great. I do feel like he just doesn't want to face the real situation.
Jermaine and Alejandra would have 2 more children together, creating a blended family structure that defied conventional understanding. This wasn't just about love or attraction. This was about power, control, and the systematic humiliation of one brother by another. Jermaine had found Randy's greatest vulnerability, his children, and weaponized it against him. The war between the Jackson brothers had officially begun. When emotional manipulation wasn't enough to destroy Randy Jackson, Jermaine deployed a more brutal weapon: financial warfare. By the time their battle reached the courtroom, Randy would find himself owing over $600,000 in child support for children living in his own brother's house. The legal maneuvering began immediately after Jermaine's marriage to Alejandra. Randy argued that since his children now lived with Jermaine in the Jackson family compound, separate child support payments were unnecessary. His logic was sound. Jermaine had voluntarily taken on the financial responsibility for Randy's children by marrying their mother. But the court system saw things differently. Despite the unusual family arrangement, Randy remained legally obligated to provide financial support for Genevieve and Stephen. When Randy failed to appear in court for the initial proceedings, claiming he was never properly notified, the judge ruled against him by default. This default judgment became a financial death sentence. Over the years, the child support obligation grew exponentially through penalties and interest. By 2013, Randy owed over $600,000, a sum that had ballooned far beyond the original monthly payments due to his refusal to comply with court orders. Randy's position was both legally wrong and emotionally understandable. He felt that by marrying Alejandra, Jermaine had assumed responsibility for his children. Paying separate child support to a woman living with his brother in his family's home felt like paying ransom to his own family. But Jermaine understood the power of this arrangement. By maintaining the legal fiction that Randy was a deadbeat dad, Jermaine could simultaneously play the role of responsible stepfather and financial provider. Every missed payment reinforced the narrative that Randy was unreliable, while Jermaine was the family's true patriarch. The psychological warfare was devastating. Randy watched his children grow up in his brother's household while he was portrayed as the absent father who refused to pay support. Jermaine publicly criticized Randy's lack of responsibility, conveniently omitting that he had created the situation by marrying Randy's children's mother. Even when Jermaine's own marriage to Alejandra fell apart, the financial arrangements didn't change. In 2004, Jermaine filed for divorce, abandoning Alejandra with the same callousness Randy had shown years earlier. But unlike Randy's gradual drift away from responsibility, Jermaine's departure was swift and brutal. He simply left divorce papers in the house and went on tour. The divorce proceedings revealed the full extent of the financial manipulation. Alejandra was awarded custody of all 4 children, Randy's 2 and Jermaine's 2, along with $3,000 monthly in child support from Jermaine. But Randy's accumulated debt remained, now over $500,000 and growing daily. This created an absurd situation. Alejandra lived in the Jackson compound with financial support from Jermaine for his children, while Randy remained legally obligated to pay child support for children he was essentially forbidden from seeing. The woman both brothers had fought over now controlled access to Randy's children while collecting support from both men. The financial warfare had achieved its intended purpose. Randy Jackson wasn't just financially destroyed. He was systematically excluded from his own children's lives while being legally required to fund their upbringing in his brother's household. While Randy and Jermaine waged their personal war, a more devastating crisis was consuming the Jackson family: Michael Jackson's descent into prescription addiction. Randy would later testify that the family's attempts to save Michael exposed fractures that went far deeper than sibling rivalry. Randy's court testimony during the AEG live wrongful death trial revealed the family's desperate, decade-long battle to save their most famous member. Beginning in the 1990s, the Jackson siblings launched multiple intervention attempts, bringing doctors to Michael's home and pleading with him to enter rehabilitation. The family's powerlessness became complete in Michael's final years. When Randy attempted to visit Michael at his rented Holmby Hills mansion, security guards refused him entry. Michael was systematically isolating himself from family members who might challenge his use or question his medical care. Randy never knew about propofol, the surgical anesthetic that ultimately killed Michael, until after his death. This ignorance wasn't accidental. Michael had progressed from prescription pills to hospital-grade anesthetics administered by a personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, creating a medical arrangement that even his family couldn't penetrate. During Michael's 2005 child essay trial, Randy witnessed his brother's complete psychological breakdown. Michael was so afraid that Randy had to take him to the hospital once, court documents revealed. He said Michael was under the influence of something, but he didn't know what his brother was taking. He just knew Michael was scared and needed help. Michael's death in 2009 wouldn't end the family warfare. It would simply provide new territory for Randy and Jermaine to fight over. While publicly battling Randy over family disputes, Jermaine Jackson faced accusations that revealed a much darker side of his character. In 2021, a woman named Rita Barrett filed a lawsuit alleging that Jermaine had assaulted her in 1988. During the same period, he was positioning himself as the family's moral authority. Barrett's lawsuit painted a horrifying picture of behavior. According to court documents, Jermaine arrived at Barrett's home uninvited and forced his way inside. Barrett, who worked as a music contractor with connections to Motown Records, claimed she knew Jermaine through her professional relationship with Berry Gordy. The allegations were particularly damaging because they occurred during Jermaine's marriage to Hazel Gordy, Berry Gordy's daughter. If true, Jermaine wasn't just committing sin, he was betraying his wife and her father, the man who had given the Jackson 5 their first recording contract. These allegations cast Jermaine's entire public persona in a different light. The man who criticized Randy's treatment of Alejandra, who claimed moral superiority in family disputes, who positioned himself as a responsible father figure, allegedly had a history of violence. The lawsuit also named Jermaine's music companies, Jermaine L. Jackson Music Productions and Work Records, suggesting that his alleged behavior may have extended into his professional relationships. This business connection indicated that Barrett's encounter with Jermaine wasn't random, but occurred within the music industry's power structures. While Jermaine's representatives couldn't be reached for comment when the lawsuit was filed, the allegations added a sinister dimension to his conflicts with Randy. Had Jermaine's manipulation of Alejandra and the children been part of a broader pattern of exploiting vulnerable women? The allegations revealed that the Jackson family's dysfunction extended far beyond financial disputes and custody battles. If Barrett's claims were true, Jermaine Jackson wasn't just a manipulative brother. He was a violent who had spent decades hiding behind his family's fame and his own carefully constructed public image. Michael Jackson's death in June 2009 should have united his grieving family. Instead, it became the ultimate battleground for Randy and Jermaine's long-standing rivalry. Within months of the funeral, the brothers were publicly fighting over Michael's estate, his children, and his legacy. Michael's will left his entire fortune to his mother, Catherine, and his 3 children, Prince, Paris, and Blanket. His siblings, including Randy and Jermaine, received nothing. This exclusion wasn't accidental. Michael had witnessed decades of family dysfunction and chose to protect his wealth from the very relatives now fighting over it. The exclusion devastated Jermaine, who believed his years as Michael's musical collaborator and public defender entitled him to a share of the estate. Randy, already financially destroyed by child support obligations, saw Michael's estate as potential salvation from his mounting debts. Together with siblings Janet, Tito, and Rebby, Randy and Jermaine signed a letter demanding the resignation of Michael's estate executors. They claimed the will was fraudulent and accused the executors of emotionally and financially abusing Catherine Jackson. The letter represented a coordinated assault on Michael's final wishes. The siblings claimed they had been too grief-stricken to challenge the will within the legal deadline, but their organized campaign suggested careful planning rather than emotional confusion. The situation escalated dramatically in July 2012 when Catherine Jackson disappeared for 10 days. She had been taken to Arizona by Jermaine and other siblings who claimed they were protecting her from stress, but her absence triggered a legal crisis. Without Catherine available to serve as guardian, Michael's children were left in limbo. Michael's cousin, T.J. Jackson, was appointed temporary guardian, a move that infuriated Randy and Jermaine.
And the simmering issue of who should be the kid's guardian? Well, a judge gave cousin TJ custody last week while grandma was indisposed at an Arizona spa.
The family's dysfunction reached its peak when Randy, Jermaine, and Janet Jackson arrived at Catherine's Calabasas home, demanding to speak with Michael's children. Security footage captured Janet Jackson attempting to take Paris Jackson's cell phone while the teenager tried to call for help. Following the public embarrassment of the attempted kidnapping, several Jackson siblings were banned from Catherine's home. The family that had once conquered the entertainment world was now reduced to restraining orders and supervised visits. Jermaine eventually backed down from the estate fight, publicly regretting his participation in the letter and the family conflict. But his retreat came only after the attempted manipulation of Michael's children backfired spectacularly, turning public opinion against the siblings and strengthening the estate executor's position. Randy never fully retreated from his challenges to Michael's will. His financial desperation made him unwilling to accept complete exclusion from his brother's fortune, even if it meant prolonging family warfare and traumatizing Michael's children. The estate war revealed the ultimate cost of the Jackson family's dysfunction. Their inability to respect Michael's wishes, protect his children, or behave with basic human decency transformed their brother's death into another opportunity for manipulation and exploitation. Michael Jackson had died trying to escape his family's chaos. In death, he became the prize they fought over most viciously. As legal battles drained their resources and public scandals destroyed their reputations, Randy and Jermaine Jackson turned to reality television, the entertainment industry's equivalent of selling your soul for temporary relevance. Their desperation for income and attention led them into increasingly humiliating situations that exposed their dysfunction to millions of viewers. In 2009, Jermaine starred in The Jacksons, A Family Dynasty, a reality show that promised unprecedented access to the Jackson family following Michael's death. The timing was ghoulish. Filming began just months after Michael's funeral, turning their grief into entertainment content. Critics immediately recognized the show's artificiality. The Jackson siblings appeared wooden and scripted, clearly uncomfortable with cameras documenting their private moments. But more damaging were accusations that they were exploiting Michael's death for financial gain, using their brother's tragedy to generate television revenue. Jermaine's reality TV appearances revealed his fundamental misunderstanding of his own cultural relevance. In 2007, he joined Celebrity Big Brother 5 in the UK, where he finished second place. His calm demeanor and peacemaking efforts between housemates suggested someone desperately trying to rehabilitate his public image. But Jermaine's most embarrassing reality TV moment came on Celebrity Wife Swap in 2014. He and his then-wife, Halima Rashid, switched lives with actor Daniel Baldwin and his girlfriend, Isabella Hoffman. The show's format, built around conflict and culture clash, was perfectly designed to expose family dysfunction. Jermaine also appeared on Gone Country, a reality show where celebrities attempted to learn country music. The spectacle of a Jackson 5 member trying to master Nashville's musical style was both pathetic and revealing. A man so desperate for career revival that he would abandon his own musical identity for television exposure. Randy's absence from most reality TV programming reflected his complete fall from entertainment relevance. While Jermaine embarrassed himself on television, Randy remained largely invisible, his financial obligations preventing him from capitalizing on even the most degrading opportunities for income. Throughout his battles with Randy, Jermaine Jackson maintained the fiction that he was a successful solo artist whose career had been unfairly overshadowed by family drama. But his actual solo career revealed a pattern of missed opportunities, industry manipulation, and declining relevance that paralleled his personal dysfunction. Jermaine's early solo success was genuine. Daddy's Home in 1972 sold over 1 million copies and established him as a viable artist outside the Jackson 5. Let's Get Serious in 1980 earned him a Grammy nomination and proved he could compete with contemporary R&B stars. But Jermaine's solo peak coincided with his decision to stay at Motown while his brothers moved to Epic Records. This choice, motivated by his marriage to Hazel Gordy, ultimately trapped him at a label experiencing creative and commercial decline. While the Jacksons explored new musical directions, Jermaine remained locked in Motown's increasingly dated aesthetic. His collaboration with Michael on Tell Me I'm Not Dreamin' in 1984 became a #1 dance hit, but it also highlighted the fundamental inequality in their relationship. Michael was already Thriller-era royalty, while Jermaine remained a secondary figure dependent on his famous brother's participation for major success. According to music industry executive Clive Davis, Michael Jackson actively sabotaged Jermaine's career opportunities. When producer Babyface was scheduled to work on Jermaine's 4th album, Michael allegedly kept Babyface busy with other projects to prevent the collaboration. This systematic interference reduced Jermaine to tears and inspired him to record Word to the Bad, a bitter song targeting Michael's selfishness. Don't Take It Personal in 1989 marked Jermaine's final significant chart success. The song reached #1 on R&B charts, but failed to cross over to mainstream audiences, reflecting his diminishing cultural relevance. By the 1990s, Jermaine was essentially a nostalgia act, trading on Jackson family history rather than contemporary musical innovation. His international appeal, particularly in Europe where When the Rain Begins to Fall with Pia Zadora became a hit, provided some career consolation. But these successes couldn't mask his failure to maintain consistent relevance in the American market that had originally embraced him. Jermaine's musical talents were genuine. He was a skilled bassist, capable songwriter, and competent producer who contributed to Whitney Houston's debut album and worked with groups like Switch. But his abilities were consistently overshadowed by poor career decisions, family drama, and industry politics. His involvement in projects like the Jackson Family Honors Concert in 1994 demonstrated his continued commitment to music, but these events felt more like family obligations than artistic statements. Jermaine had become a curator of Jackson family legacy rather than a creator of new musical content. The tragedy of Jermaine's solo career wasn't lack of talent, but lack of independence. His decisions were consistently influenced by family relationships, romantic entanglements, and personal feuds rather than artistic vision or commercial strategy. The man who could have been a significant R&B artist became instead a footnote in his own family's story. His rivalry with Randy, his manipulation of Alejandra, his battles over Michael's estate, all of these conflicts consumed energy that might have been channeled into musical creativity. Jermaine Jackson's greatest enemy wasn't the music industry or changing public tastes. It was his own inability to separate his art from his personal dysfunction. In the end, Jermaine Jackson's hatred for Randy Jackson cost them both everything that mattered. Their rivalry destroyed their relationship with their children, their standing in the entertainment industry, and their connection to Michael Jackson's legacy. What began as competition between brothers became a mutual assured destruction that left neither man with dignity intact. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.